Hi, answering questions about medical writing from people who have just begun their careers in the field. Today's question is, how do I develop my writing process? Every writer seems to have their own signature, distinctive writing process. So today's question is, how do I develop my writing process? Although there are countless ways in which one can develop their writing process, I'd like to share 3 methods which I have used in my career, and hopefully they'll be applicable to you as well, as they are to many other writers who might be seeing this. The first process is to write the ending first, to write the overall results or conclusions first, and then write everything else to lead the reader to the overall conclusions and the overall takeaway messages. Think about that approach. Start with the end in mind and compose everything else to slowly and carefully lead the reader toward that ending which you just composed. The second is called the hot and cold writing process. In medical writing, it's very rarely that you actually sit down and write something which you come up with on your own, because medical writing is really about translating the language of science to a language that anyone else can understand. So that being said, everything that we do as medical writers has to be properly referenced and properly justified with existing information and existing research. So the hot and cold process is about looking at your references, boiling down the key factors, the so-called hot elements of your piece or article, and writing them down first without thinking about the continuity or cohesiveness of the write-up initially, writing down only the hot elements, and then coming back later to write cooler, calmer sentences to kind of connect the hot elements together and produce this continuous and cohesive piece. It takes a little bit of practice, but it's very much possible to implement the hot and cold process. I would recommend you give this a shot as well. The third method is exactly like how a play would be written, which is Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. The 3 acts writing process, the beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning would introduce your characters, which in the field of medical writing could be the different pieces of the scientific puzzle which we talk about. The middle is about how these different pieces of the scientific puzzle would interact with each other. It might talk about pathways or proteins or components which would interact with one another. And the closing, Act 3, would be the overall takeaways and conclusions. And it's possible to write these 3 pieces separately, perhaps even at different sittings, and then find a way of creating some linkers in between in order to meld all these 3 pieces together to flow as a cohesive story. These are 3 methods that you can try to improve your writing process. However, these are not the only 3 methods. I encourage you to continue researching other writing methods. You will find examples online of other medical writers who have talked about their writing methods. You'll also find plenty of examples of people outside the scientific writing and medical writing field who have provided their own perspective on how you can develop and hone your own unique writing process with time. And secondly, take a moment to ask writers about their writing process when you have an informational interview, or when you find yourself having a conversation with a medical writer or a science writer at a networking event, or even online on LinkedIn. Take a moment to ask them what their writing process is like, how they develop that writing process, and see if you can glean some information that you can use in your own career to improve your writing process. So think about that, and all the best.